late December of 2000, my boyfriend Ryan and his best friend Don moved into the house that Don had grown up in. Their apartment was too cramped during their band practices, and Don's father was willing to make the rent very reasonable. The house is down the street from a very large and very old cemetery, and directly across from an old canal. The neighborhood is peaceful and charming most of the time. Before they moved in, they had to fix the house up quite a bit because the last residents had trashed it so badly. They had ripped up the carpet, splattered paint on the walls, and replaced all the blinds with wrapping paper. Naturally, they enlisted my help. As I drove to their new home for the first time, I experienced very unsettling feelings as I drove up and parked. The feelings pervaded the entire time I was in the house. I grew up in a haunted house and have had other experiences with the supernatural, most of them positive. I'm not one to be easily scared by the supernatural, nor do I think that because something frightens me, that is automatically evil. I decided to ignore the feelings, because no one else seemed to be bothered. Ryan and Don settled comfortably into their new house, and Don was glad to be back in his childhood home. I became used to the strange sensations I would experience all around the house. Even the overwhelming feeling of being watched when I'd go away in my car ceased to bother me. One night in February, I believe, I was leaving to go back to my house at around 3 a.m. As I fumbled for my keys to unlock my car door, I could feel someone behind me. Suddenly, I heard 3 loud, stomping footsteps. Thinking that it was possibly some live person intending to harm me, I whirled around and screamed as loudly as I could. There was no one there. Ryan, naturally, came running out of the house. I ran onto the porch and into Ryan's arms. I told him what happened and started sobbing uncontrollably. I was no longer frightened, but I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. Whoever that is, I remember saying, is very confused. It's a man, and he needs help. I don't know that he realizes that he is dead. Ryan became very thoughtful for a moment. You know, we are surrounded by a cemetery, and people have drowned in the canal. Someone did just a few years ago, but I don't know who it was. After that, Ryan and I went both back to my place to spend the night. Don had been visiting his mother. The next day, we told Don what happened. He confirmed that someone had drowned in the canal a few years before, but it was a young girl. I immediately ruled out the young girl. I knew this presence was very masculine. Don also remembered that a very nice man who had lived next door had died suddenly of a heart attack when Don was a child. That seemed like a more plausible candidate, but there was the long history of the canal to consider, and the nearby cemetery. Don was dumbfounded by the entire situation. I lived here for the first 15 years of my life, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. He reflected for a moment. Well, there was that one time when I had stayed home from school and felt someone looking at me, so I turned around, and there was my sister. I said, "Hey, Bethany," and then remembered that she had gone to school that morning and wasn't going to be home for about an hour. The apparition disappeared, and at the regular time, she came home. "Well," said Ryan, there was the Fonzie incident too. Fonzie is a very friendly, sweet-tempered cat that belonged to Don. Apparently, when Don and Ryan were working on the house, before they had moved in, the cat was still at their apartment. They had both, on separate occasions, seen Fonzie walking around. I found both the accounts of these rather strange apparitions a bit puzzling. I know that sometimes apparitions of the living are seen, but it is usually when something pivotal is about to happen. Nothing interesting happened before or after these odd apparitions. I thought that perhaps some entity was somehow taking the forms of things that were familiar and loved, so as to let them know of its presence without being threatening. Whatever it was, did not seem to me like it could have been caused by the same melancholy presence I felt. Over the next few months, nothing much happened. I brought 2 friends of mine, both of whom who've had many experiences with the paranormal, over to the house. One of them didn't get any negative feelings or sad feelings from the area at all. Another, whom I've not told about the strange occurrences, was so put off with the depressed feeling she got that she wanted to leave almost as soon as she arrived. One thing beyond sensing a spirit worth mentioning did occur in those several months. I was asleep on the couch in the living room while Ryan and Don's band practiced. All of a sudden, Kenny, the bass player, came running up the stairs. He woke me up. "Hey, are you alright?" he asked. "Yeah. Why?" I replied sleepily, "Because we were sure we heard someone come in the front door." I told him I hadn't heard anything. He proceeded to check all around the house for the suspected intruder and never found anyone or anything. During the summer months, a few torrential downpours caused Ryan and Don's basement to flood, nearly destroying a significant portion of their band equipment. After that incident, they decided to move, yet again. I was staying at my own place, and Don was visiting his mother again. In the middle of the night, Ryan called me in a panic. "I just had the strangest experience," he told me. I was asleep on the couch when I was awakened by a baby crying. I sat up and realized that the noise was coming from Don's room. I looked up and stared down the hall. All of a sudden, this white, somewhat blurred figure of a woman came walking out of my room and went into Don's room. Then I heard a woman shushing the baby. Ryan was frightened, but he realized that the strange event was not threatening in any way. We talked about it and agreed that it was most likely some sort of residual haunting. Later, Ryan told Don about the experience and found that Don had witnessed the same event. Ryan and Don had not lived in the house for a few months now. We never figured out exactly who the man outside the house was, or who the woman and the baby were, or what caused the strange apparitions of Bethany and Fonzie. I only wonder if these things still go on in the house, and if the current residents have the powers of observation to notice them. This happened in February 2000, during my junior year of high school. I was in my bed one night, just staring at the ceiling, waiting to fall asleep. That night, for some odd reason, I was lying on the opposite end of the bed. I remember seeing the yellow digital numbers on my TV say 12:40 a.m. I remember this detail because I know for sure that I was not sleeping. I was fully awake and conscious. Suddenly, I felt this eerie chill just start to permeate the room. So cold, so freezing. A wind that was coming from seemingly nowhere because my window was closed tight, as was my door. I had about 3 layers of blankets and sheets on me, but the cold just seemed to be going right under them. Immediately, just every hair on the back of my neck was standing on end. People use the terms chills going down their spines figuratively, but the real thing is not the most pleasant sensation in the world. Then, I heard this male voice, very sinister in tone, start laughing. It just echoed and surrounded me. I was terror-stricken at this point. I could feel my heart beating. I closed my eyes, praying to God frantically that whatever it was would leave. When the voice subsided, the room returned to normal temperature. I just bolted out of my room. I have no idea what it was that visited me that night, but several times after that, when I was in bed, I had this feeling that someone or something intangible was watching me. Since then, I've had several psychic and numerology readings, which indicate that I'm sensitive to the psychic and supernatural. I've had dreams throughout my life, which served as a precursor of good tidings in the future, including my acceptance into the school I am attending today. I am a college freshman. When I visit home, I refuse to sleep without the hall light on. Call me chicken, but I don't think I'm quite ready to encounter what lies in the darkness again. For these purposes, let's just say my name is Amy. Where I come from, ghosts and the supernatural is kind of the way of life for my people. We welcome ghosts to our family members who have passed away with open arms, knowing they are here to watch over us. That's the mentality I've had all my life, but when the reality of it is faced, it's a different story. I have two unbelievable experiences to tell anyone who is interested enough to listen. Bear in mind, this is the first time I've told strangers about this. I should say my first ghost experience was when I lost my mom, when I was 16. My mom was the center of my universe, and when she died unexpectedly during childbirth, it was a shock to me for years to come. I'm 23 now. 2 days after her death, I was sleeping in her bedroom, lying on her side of the bed. I'd been crying myself to sleep, and I had this dream. At least I thought it was a dream, because the way it happened, it was as real as it could be. In my dream, or self-conscious state of mind, I was lying in the same position in which I had fallen asleep when I saw Mom come into the room and just stand there watching me sleep. I opened my eyes in the dream, and she very gently kissed me on the cheek and told me not to cry. I tried to hold on to her so she won't go, but she left with me crying bitterly in my sleep. I woke up immediately after, smelling her perfume very strongly in the room. I knew then without a doubt my mom visited me to say goodbye. I wasn't afraid, just very sad, because she's gone. My second and very terrifying ghost experience happened a couple years later when my grandfather became violently ill with severe heart problems. I was never close with my grandfather. I loved him, but he was very strict and unable to show any emotions to anyone, not even my grandma. But we all know he loves us in his own way. The hospital that he was admitted to was a little distance away from the house, so we could actually take food over to him. We all went to visit him several times a day, but he was so sick, he couldn't even talk to us anymore. About a week or so after he's been admitted, the whole family went to the hospital to see him, but I remember staying home alone that day. We have a couch in the living room that sits across from the front door. I was napping on and off when I heard someone opening the front door. Since it was locked, I thought it had to be one of my family coming home. Imagine my surprise when I looked up and saw my grandfather walking in his carrying bag that we used to put his clothes in when we took him to the hospital. I said hi to him, but he didn't answer, just went straight to his room and closed the door. I didn't know what to think at this point, but I remember expecting my family to burst through the door any second, telling me they brought him home because he was feeling better. After about 3 minutes, I could hear him moving about in his room, so I went to knock on the door to ask him if he needed help with something, but no one even answered, though I could hear things moving. It didn't surprise me, because he could never talk much. About 15 minutes later, my aunt burst in the house screaming at the top of her voice that we've lost Grandpa. I thought they meant they lost him when they were coming home, so I told her he's already here, and he's in his room. She looked at me as if I was crazy, and told me that Grandpa died right around the time he walked into the house a while ago. I fainted when she said that, and up to this day, I can't believe that happened to me. I don't know what to make of it, but it sure scared me for a long, long time. We had just gotten done playing video games and decided to go to bed, myself and 3 others. One girl who would be my future goddaughter, her aunt, and their younger friend had enough electronic entertainment for one night. The younger girl had decided to sleep on the couch, leaving the rest of us to sleep on the floor, since there wasn't enough beds in the bedroom to go around. Most everyone was just laying there, staring at something in the dark, or randomly saying something here and there, getting ready to fall asleep. I stared straight at a digital clock. Suddenly, a figure had obstructed my view of the clock for a brief moment. It was then that I said, "Hey guys, did you see that?" Soon after, I heard my goddaughter let out a loud scream. They both claimed to have seen a figure heading towards the kitchen, and we heard a loud clatter of pans hitting the ground. The thing disappeared, and we didn't see it again all night. Neither did my goddaughter. But here's my second story. The week I started college, I noticed a change in my dog. He was acting quite a bit funny, almost sick. Within that week, it was found that he had slipped a disc in his back and was later put to sleep. I was emotionally torn for a while, as I was, and still am, very much attached to that dog. After a few months, I decided that even though I really loved my previous dog, I still did want a companion around, and got the dog I currently have. The morning after we had brought her home, I felt a weight on my chest. It felt like the size of a dog, about the same size as the one I had before. I thought it was the new dog, so I told her to get down. I heard her jump from my chest to the floor. It was then that I realized it wasn't the new dog, because my room's door was shut, and there was no way she could have gotten in here. That, and the fact that she wasn't anywhere around. At first, I was a bit spooked, but then I thought, good, he's still here with me. The summer I turned 18 and headed off to college, my family moved to Martinsville, New Jersey. They built a brand new house on land that was once part of what my grandfather called Indian country. Whenever I would go home for break, I never slept very well in the house. I always had butterflies in my stomach and couldn't pass out until the wee hours of the night when my eyes just couldn't stay open anymore. One day, I was sitting in the family room watching TV. Above the TV there was a 7x8 foot opening into the hallway upstairs. I caught someone out of the corner of my eye walking by that opening and into my sister's bedroom. Immediately I thought it was odd. The only other people who were in the house were my mother and grandfather, both of whom were to the left of me, in the kitchen. When I told them what happened, they just stood there, looking at each other. Finally, my grandmother spoke up. Apparently, both her and my mother had seen a figure walk by the doorways in the house on a number of occasions. According to my grandmother, the lights flickered every once in a while too. She was under the impression the house was haunted. That night, I was lying in bed, reading a book. It was about 4 a.m., and I was the only one up. I decided to brush my teeth before trying to get some sleep. I opened the door to my bedroom and was about to turn left to go to the bathroom when I felt the need to look down the hallway towards my mother's room. My mom usually kept the door closed, but that night, the door was open, and there was a man standing in the opening. He was tall and skinny. The only man that was in the house was my stepfather, and he's short and plump. The figure was just standing there, looking at me. No, watching me. I immediately ran into the bathroom, my heart pounding. About 10 minutes later, I got the nerve to run back to my room and hide under the covers. Needless to say, I didn't sleep a wink. From that night on, I knew that the butterflies in my stomach were because I felt something watching me. Although it frightened me like I've never been frightened before, and even though I still get the shivers thinking about that night, I've always known this ghost was just a watcher. I didn't feel any evil or ill will from him, but I have no idea who he was. Like I said earlier, the land was considered Indian country, i.e., it was wooded, until they cleared it for the new development. So, it's possible the ghost was an American Indian, but for some reason, I feel that isn't right. That this man I saw was in fact white, and possibly a farmer from the early 1900s. Either way, the shadows and flickering of the lights continued until my family moved 3 years later. It's possible they even continue today, but I don't think anyone ever saw the man as clearly as I did that night. Thanks for reading. I've been reading through your website and found it very interesting, but I never thought that I had a story to relay until I read a story that sounded extremely like something happened to me a few years ago. I live in Toronto, Canada, and in 1991, my third child was just a baby, and would wake up nightly around 2 a.m. for feeding. At the time, we lived in a condo, which we had lived in since 1988. We had some minor incidents, like things moving around, and shadows seen out of the corner of one's eye, but nothing to speak of really. Just things that could be chalked up to imagination. On one particular night, my son wakened for his feeding. I sat in my rocking chair in the baby's room, feeding him. The nightlight was on, and I was wide awake, when all of a sudden, I heard what sounded like a lion roar, or a tiger roar, loud and clear. I jumped up, turned on all the lights in the house, and was convinced that a tiger was in the closet. Woke up my husband and had him search the entire apartment, including the balcony, which was 6 stories up. Of course, it would have been impossible for an animal to have gone into the apartment, but the roar had sounded so real, I had to be sure. After that, I tried to convince myself that it was my imagination, but I never forgot about it. I wonder if you know what this could be, and if there's any explanation for it. Hey guys, I just want to let you know that I'm full of energy, but full of doubt, because there's no food around, and I have no food to eat, and I need some food. So give me some grub. Comment in the section below, make me fat with energy, and I'll go ahead and love you forever. Guys, I don't know what I'm talking about. I really need to eat. I spent all day working on this video just because I love you guys, and I want to make sure I get out the best video possible. And I kind of neglect my eating habits sometimes. And then when I'm in the zone, I want to make sure I get this video done, and then blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. See? I'm talking like The Sims, you know, from that video game. Please, someone don't let me out of the zoo again. I'm a caged animal. I need to be there. And when you let Phantom loose, everybody's going to go crazy. Anyway, guys, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Obviously, social media, word of mouth is the best way to get my videos around so that my channel can grow. So be sure to share anywhere across social media. I'm slurring my words, guys. But for you guys that didn't know, I posted this on social media, but I actually had a sleep paralysis moment that actually happened for the first time in my life. And I'm definitely not proud to have it. I hope I never have it again. But guys, so if you haven't heard, basically, I was on my bed sitting and I looked up, and to make a long story short, I saw this terrifying image of, I don't even know what it was exactly, but it was a hybrid of a witch and a clown. So I fell asleep on my back momentarily, and I look up and I see this thing, and it's reaching it's extending its arms towards me, and it's like almost like, come here, like I want to like devour your soul. Like seriously, I'm not even kidding. Like there's an image that I posted in the community tab, and if you guys want a good idea of what it looked like, that's the best image that I posted in that community tab of my channel. So yeah, never again, guys. And I know I make this sound humorous, but it definitely wasn't humorous at all. Like, it was terrifying. And this is why I don't tell my own personal stories, because I make it a comedic act in the end, and I can't talk anymore. I'm slurring my words, and I keep saying that, but it's the truth, guys. But with that, I'm signing off. And you guys know that you gotta leave your comments, you gotta like, and you gotta do all that good puppy dog stuff in the comment section below. What is puppy dog stuff? Nobody will ever know, not even me. And that's kind of a bad thing, because I should know what I'm talking about, but I never do. Again, sounding redundant. So I'm gonna go. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Like a ghost that's flipping flapjacks. Bye-bye. And a stuttering ghost like me.